Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. Kellner with Droid Life. And yep, look what time it is. It's Samsung Galaxy S4 time. So we finally got one official retail unit in our hands. This is actually the Sprint version. No carrier branding anywhere on there. We got the Sprint version. Full review is ready. But we also want to take some time to do a whole bunch of videos with you because, you know, hands-on videos, overviews, all that stuff is definitely what you guys love to see. So what we're going to do today is do sort of a tour, software, a little bit, hardware, just some initial impressions. And then from there, we're going to go into some comparisons with the Galaxy S3, the HTC One, and the Nexus 4, since those are sort of the big three competitors to this device at this time. But we'll get into those later. What we want to do now, again, is just talk about overview of the device, our initial impressions. Then you guys can get to the review and watch those other videos once we have those up. So let's talk about specs for a second. We've got a full HD 5-inch 1080p display, Super AMOLED. It's the first of its kind, essentially. This is the first device with it. It's a gorgeous display. You can see it's essentially edge to edge, especially when you compare it to the Galaxy S3. And let me just show you that really quick so you can see. So look at the bezel on the Galaxy S3 compared to the Galaxy S4. It is night and day. All right, other than display, we've got a 1.9 gigahertz quad-core Snapdragon 600 processor in here. So essentially the most powerful processor you can buy right now. Qualcomm has a Snapdragon 800 in the works, but it's not in any device at this time. So this is essentially it. It's also the same processor in the One, although the One's clocked down a little bit to 1.7 gigahertz, or the S4 is clocked up to 1.9, whichever way you want to go with that. You've also got a 2 gig of RAM inside. As far as storage goes, you can go with 16, 32, or 64 gigabytes of internal storage. This particular unit has 16 gig. But keep in mind that if you go with the cheaper 16 gig versions, Samsung always throws in a micro SD slot into their high-end devices, and their SD slots support up to 64 gigabyte SD cards. So you can go cheap on the internal and just jack that up with a micro SD card. So we've got that going on. We have a 13 megapixel camera on the back. And I sort of wanted to show this to you because we do sort of have a camera nipple going on here. If you guys remember when the HTC One X came out last year, it sort of caught a little bit of flack for having a camera nipple. And this device definitely has one of those as well. It's kind of got a protective barrier around it, but it's definitely something you should be aware of. You also see a flash there. So I'm assuming the sensor is just massive and they had to make it stick out because it's 13 megapixels, so it's much bigger than you're going to see with like an 8 megapixel sensor or the 4 megapixel sensor that HTC used in the One. So definitely notice that. On the front, you've got a 1.9 or essentially 2 megapixel camera there. You know, the device is going to be on Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Sprint, all the big players, LTE, GSM, CDMA, Wi-Fi, all the connectivity. It's got NFC. No wireless charging, though they are going to release wireless charging accessories apparently later on, though they've said that with the Galaxy S3 and the Note 2, and we still haven't seen any of that. So keep that in mind, wireless charging is coming. The device is 7.9 millimeters thick, so it's incredibly thin, and in fact, it's actually thinner than the Galaxy S3. See if we can get you a look at that. It's actually thinner than the Galaxy S3, yet it's got, you know, better processor in it, better display, all of that good stuff in there. So it's actually a smaller package in general. It's a little bit thicker, it's a little bit lighter, but yet it has a bigger battery. I believe the battery in this device is like 2600 milliamp hour, and the Galaxy S3 I think was 2100 milliamp hour. So definitely some difference there. Bigger battery, bigger display, better processor, you know, same storage and all of that stuff, but in a slimmer package overall. And we'll do, like I said, a comparison to that later. This is just about the phone in general. So if we do a tour, on this right side, you've got your power lock switch, and that's it. Sort of this metal band around the outside. Up top is your 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, noise canceling mic, and that must be the IR blaster because you can use this as a remote, so that must be the IR blaster. And if we come around to this side, you have your typical volume rocker, nothing else, and then on the bottom is your microphone and your micro USB port, which should double as a MHL port as well. Then on the front, we have the physical home button. I'm gonna go ahead and press that and see if we can't get, there we go. There's your soft keys there. You got back and menu. And if we go back to the back side here, you've got Sprint version, no carrier branding, just says Galaxy S4 down here. And then you've got Samsung there. There's your mic, or I'm sorry, your speaker. So I don't know if you can see this or not, but the Galaxy S4 definitely has sort of a dotted texture to it. There you go. You can definitely see this sort of dotted texture. I almost shouldn't call it a texture. It's more of just a pattern imprinted on the back cover because it's just smooth and just feels like glossy plastic. And you'll see that all the way up and down the device. So the device in general looks a lot like a Galaxy S3. However, it's much more refined, I would say, and a lot cleaner feel and look in general. You almost have sort of a more squared off feeling. When you look down the device like this, the edges aren't necessarily as tapered as I believe they were on the Galaxy S3. It's a lot more boxy, if you will. Now, everything's rounded, but it's a lot more boxy, I would say. So you've kind of got that feel going. If you want to pull the battery cover off, it's a little more difficult than it was on devices in the past. And this is sort of what it looks like. Really flimsy plastic, as you guys know, come to get used to with Samsung devices. And here you've got your micro SD slot, and there's your SIM card slot. You can see the big old battery. There's that speaker, and that's sort of what it looks like underneath. Putting this back cover on, it's a little bit more difficult than it has been in the past, but it's really not that hard. You just sort of click it in, go around the device, and click, 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 and then there you go. As you can tell, this is sort of a fingerprint magnet here on the back. I'm not a huge fan of that. And Samsung, you know, the Galaxy S3 to me was the exact same way. This sort of glossy plastic on the back. Many of you like to call it cheap, and I'm not going to argue with you on that, but what I don't like about it is this sort of fingerprint sort of smear that you constantly have on it. That drives me nuts. All right, so that's hardware, right? You guys have heard enough there. Let's talk a little bit about software. So here's the lock screen. And you can see a big swipe up. Samsung's gotten rid of, well, you can actually enable, I think, the water noise in that animation, but they've done this new one, which is sort of this light that follows your finger around. They also have Air View with your finger now, which we've talked about in the past. As you can see, the light is sort of trailing wherever my finger goes. I'm not actually touching the display, by the way. I don't know if I can show you that from here. So see, I'm not actually touching the display, but that light is following my finger, which is kind of cool. So to unlock it, it's just a big swipe up, or you can, you know, jump into shortcuts if you want, but otherwise just swipe anywhere, direction, and it will unlock. So this is TouchWiz, right? The newest version from Samsung. I've had to tweak it a little bit because the first time you load up your device, they've got big clocks and spammy widgets and things all over like this. So I've actually wiped out some of them, but you can see big Samsung hub things. They essentially give you 5 screens, and you can remove all of them and edit all of them if you want. Go down to just one if you will. But that's sort of your, you know, your standard TouchWiz setup. It doesn't look any different to me than any other TouchWiz has. So, you know, we've got folders. There's an animation, which is a little too slow for my liking. I may see if I can turn that off, but you can dock other apps down here. Here is the notification pull down. So it's running Android 4.2.2, and that means you have this extra toggle or extra screen over here for more toggles. For anything you want, you can turn NFC off here, blocking mode, power saving, you know, screen mirroring. You can do all that stuff with a quick shortcut. And one of the cool things they've done is when you're in your main screen with your actual notifications, they still left the brightness adjusting there, but then they put in essentially what are your top 5 favorite quick toggles. So if we go back over here and you hit this little pencil button, you actually edit these. And so let's say I want screen rotation up here instead of airplane mode, I can just swap those. And then that will start showing up top. And you can adjust these. You can't get rid of any of them. You can just adjust them in any order. You know, I can adjust the order of these ones down here as well. So you could start setting up, you know, at least your first top 2 rows to be where you want them. And that's sort of how that works. So I thought that was kind of a cool addition, just so you can set whatever you want up top. They've also, as you can see, done away with that. Let me show you this again. Swipe down. It doesn't do that transition animation that it used to do, which used to just drive me nuts. You can also swipe over to get to all of your other toggles if you want, if you don't want to jump over to that one. So that's what we're looking at there. Let me go and jump into the app drawer. So app drawer, it looks just like it used to in the Galaxy S3 and Note 2. No change here, sort of an infinite scroller. You can alphabetize it or do it by recently installed or all of that stuff. You can customize a little bit. To get to widgets, you actually have to tap the widgets menu. That gets you in there. You can tap this and just look at all the apps you've downloaded. Hit menu and you can get into, let's go to apps. Hit menu and you can get into all sorts of stuff. How to create folders, download applications, how you want to view it, sharing, uninstalling, all of that stuff, right? So again, none of this is necessarily new. So if you want to, let's say, make folders, the only way to do that is to grab an app from the app drawer and make a folder, and then it will then make a folder for you. If you want to add other apps to that, you can then grab them and drag them onto that and they will make them. But you can't just drop apps on top of each other and make folders like you can in standard Android. You can see that just keeps sliding that out of the way. And this has been the same in TouchWiz for quite some time now. This isn't necessarily anything new. We just want to point out that it hasn't changed. So if you're used to normal Android folder making, Samsung has changed that up a lot. One thing they do, and I don't know if this is old or not, but you can see if you grab anything, they show you this sort of card preview of what's going on, and it gives you sort of the layout of all of your pages in case you want to add things to it or see if there's room to. I'm not sure if that's new or not, but it's at least sort of handy. So that's the app drawer and sort of the desktop. Again, not a lot has changed. Let's go ahead and go into settings and just show you what we've got going on here. So the settings menu, at least on the Sprint version, we're not sure if it'll be like this with every version, they've really rearranged stuff. So you've got a connections tab, a my device tab, accounts, and more. And personally, I find these to be organized in no particular way, and I constantly find myself searching for everything I need. So connections, Wi-Fi, hotspot, Bluetooth, data usage, that stuff sort of makes sense. You have NFC and S-Beam and nearby, and these things actually do make sense for a connections category. But when you get into, like, say, more, there's a battery thing. Why is that not in my device? Or application manager. Why is that not in my device? Things like that I don't really understand. But yet my device seems more of like a personalization thing with lock screen and display. You can see your accounts are in here. It's sort of jumbled and you're going to have to get used to it. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, like I said. But in here you'll find, you know, all your settings for AirView and voice control and motions and gestures, because those are a lot of the new features in Samsung that Samsung has put in this phone. And that's really what's going to end up making this phone stand out from anything else, or even the Galaxy S3 for now, is all of the new software it's done. The hardware itself is, you know, just standard Samsung fare, if you will, with new processor and display. But the software is where they're really going to try to make this thing stand out. So let me go into About Device and show you. Definitely running Android 4.2.2. If we go ahead and press that, you get into the Jelly Bean Bean Flinger. So you guys have seen all this, right? So it's definitely running the newest version of Android, which is always a bonus. But that's sort of what you know, the settings menu looks like. I will say that Samsung needs to update or get with the times as far as Android design language goes. You can't swipe between all these columns. You actually have to physically go up and tap on this stuff. You can't swipe. So, and it's like that in a number of places throughout the device and sort of drives me a little nuts. So let's talk about a couple of things though. If we go into, like, say, the gallery, this is where I want to show you just some of the new stuff in general. So AirView now works with your finger, not an S Pen like on the Galaxy Note 2. So if you want to, say, zoom in on a picture, get a preview of it, you can actually hover your finger just slightly over an image and it'll pop up. And this only works in certain places. So I actually tapped on that image. But if I hover, you can see it pops up a little preview. So kind of a cool little deal there. AirView works sort of anywhere. They've also done some air gesture things. So say I'm looking at a picture and I want to go to the next one, but I don't want to touch my device physically. My hands are dirty or something. I can just swipe over. If I can figure out which way. There we go. And it just kind of swipes. And swipes and swipes. And I can go backwards if I want, forward, backwards. See, it works pretty well. So those are some of the new sort of gesture type things they've done. If we go into the browser, not Chrome, by the way, just the regular internet browser, you can do this as well if you have multiple tabs open or something like that. Yes, I know I'm in airplane mode. So you can swipe and it should take you, yeah, there we go. Well, it's going to keep telling me that because I have airplane mode on, but I should be able to just keep swiping between, there we go. I can swipe between pages or tabs that I have open. Now here's the other gesture you can do. If you swipe your finger up or down, you can actually get it to scroll. And this, you can also do this with your eyes. You can set it to focus on your eyes and then you can tilt the device and it'll scroll that way too, but the finger seems to work better. And again, this is for use cases where you don't necessarily want to touch your device. Hands are dirty or something like that. There is some AirView you can do in other places too, like Well, actually, I could show you that right there. So let's go. Here's recent tasks. You long press home to get into there. But I believe you can air view, and it'll actually zoom in on things in the browser. So now this only works, again, in the regular internet browser. You can't do this in Chrome. And that seems to be the case with a lot of these apps or these new features that Samsung's doing. They're only used in standard native applications. And we see that a lot when we ask them, you know, if they're going to bring this to other devices, and they weren't necessarily sure. They said they're, you know, sort of open to that idea, but haven't necessarily gone that route yet. So if we long press on home again, though, I want to show you this is where your sort of task killer and all that good stuff is, right? You guys have seen that before. Not a lot's changed there. Let's jump into the camera, and I'm going to do a big old camera walkthrough later on. I just want to show you the UI. So Samsung said that they got a lot of really positive feedback from the UI of the Galaxy camera, and so they've actually mimicked or copied that UI here onto the Galaxy S4. So just the style in general, you can toggle into modes, and they've got all sorts of different modes now that you can change to. A couple of new ones are, if I can find them, well, there's eraser. So if you've got a moving object that basically photobombs your photo, you can remove them. Animated photos sort of allows you to create your own GIFs out of sort of moving objects in a video. Drama shot, as you can see, it sort of does a frame by frame of someone. So it's kind of cool for sport shots and things like that. The rest of these then have been around for a while. Actually, sound and shot, I believe, is new, and you can actually take a picture and then record some audio with it. So say you're traveling around the world and you want to record the sounds of the ocean or something, you could send that to someone. But you can see this carousel sort of UI. This is right from the Galaxy cameras where we first saw that at. You've got a bunch of ideas, or I'm sorry, options here. You can press this button and it'll give you a sort of picture-in-picture. You've got some more settings if you press this. The camera's pretty robust, so again, we're going to do a separate probably video and at least full post on that. But this is just sort of what the camera UI looks like. So this has basically just been an overview of the device. You got software. Again, not a lot's changed from the Galaxy S3. It's just got some new additions like air view and gestures and things like that. The camera UI is different, and they've added some things there. It's a 13 megapixel sensor, so it's going to be a lot different than some of the other devices we've seen. But that's basically sort of an overview of it. I did want to show you one other trick though. If you have the device laying down and you want to just check on status of your phone in general, you can swipe over it, and it should wake up. Try that again. Of course, when I want to do it on video, it doesn't work. So if I swipe over, that's how it always works, right? There we go. It sort of wakes up and tells you missed calls or emails or texts. Let's see if we can do that again after it went to sleep. Come on, baby. I'm telling you, it works usually a lot better than this. Maybe my hand's not close enough. There we go. It also tells you your battery percentage and then time. And it shows for a little while and then it sort of goes away. So it's just a nice way to get a preview of your device without having to actually unlock it. So if it's just laying on your desk, you could just sort of wake it up. Yeah, see, I wasn't doing it close enough. And that's what it looks like. So it's very cool. But the Galaxy S4 in general, you know, you have to read the whole review. It's going to be extensive. We got more videos coming though, comparisons again with all these bad boys. So make sure you stick with us. We are Droid Life, and we're out. Peace.